Hey guys, just want to say you're currently watching the final part of the creepypasta iceberg. I hope you enjoy this. I do also want to give a quick shout out to the person that made the iceberg. I did forget. I'll also credit them in the description as well. If I can find the name, that is. I don't know who they are, but as I said, thank you again. And without any further ado, let's get into it. Never go camping in the woods alone. This story follows our author, who at the time was in love with the idea of camping. He always was as a kid as well, which only furthermore made him want to go camping. One day, however, none of his friends are able to actually go camping with him, so he goes alone, and at first everything's normal. The only difference is when something calls his name. Dying Happy. Dying Happy is the story that I am commonly familiar with. It was made by Icy Pie, and it deals with, well, dying happy. And I'll say this much, if anyone here can't really stomach anything related to suicide, then probably maybe not listen to this entry. I should have said that earlier, but yeah, that's mainly what it is. I might actually go over it in a different video, but that will be all for now. Grey Man. Grey Man is a creepypasta about a game called LSD Dream Simulator. The creepypasta itself is about two friends. One has a gaming channel which covers obscure games that no one has played before, and at the time it was fairly popular, or it was said at least by the author of the story. It was also then said as well at the time that after recommending the game, a bunch of really creepy stuff happened, but that was really just what the plot of the game was like anyway. The plot of LSD Dream Simulator was where you'd basically have different days. Each one would be a different dream, and thus being a new level. It also eventually traumatizes the author and his friend, and as a matter of fact, it still haunts their nightmares of this grey entity that will constantly boom around looking for probably its next victim. The Forgotten Spider-Man. The Forgotten Spider-Man is basically a comic creepypasta about an old comic that itself was released a long time ago, and our author then finds it. After finding it, a bunch of weird stuff happens as well, and he's now haunted by the horrific image of the Spider-Man killing everyone and everything. SpongeBob All Hope is Lost. This is a typical Lost episode creepypasta, and although it isn't scary, I'd be lying if I said it didn't unnerve me back in the day. The general consensus of the creepypasta is an intern at Nickelodeon finds a old SpongeBob tape, plays it, and a bunch of creepy stuff happens regarding gore, and eventually the author gets so attached to them that he cries every time something happens, and, well, you can probably guess what else. Just typical cliches, really. You'll never even know. The creepypasta You'll Never Even Know is the story about a neighbor who has a bunch of security cameras. The main protagonist, unknowingly and curious, hacks into them. After a while, he doesn't find much. Only a couple nights later, however, he finds a mysterious creature that seemingly goes unnoticed to everyone else. The author, then done with all the hacking, decides to never discuss what happened truly, as what he saw was something that probably very well could see him too. Pancake Family. This story is an investigative one. It follows a murder of, as you can tell, the Pancake Family, and I don't know much else about it than really just being a murder story. I might come across it and read it, perhaps maybe later, but as of now, that's all I know. Superman No More Heroes. This is a more disturbing take on a comic that basically stated that Superman himself was sick of the inevitableness of the fact that there truly was no heroes, and basically, or assumingly, killed off everything and everyone, thus leading the comic itself to be questioned. Nevertheless, it's a pretty chilling read. The Long Walk. The Long Walk, from what I could recall, I think was a story about how strange things can be, such as changes in road shapes and the overall familiarity of day-to-day life. And the fact that that changes sometimes, I guess, can be pretty creepy by itself. Missing teeth. Okay, so unfortunately I couldn't find anything on this. There is a creepypasta out there called teeth.jpg, but I don't know if that's it. Princess. Okay, I'll be honest, I couldn't find anything on that creepypasta, but I might leave it blank for now, but I might come back to it as a new entry if anyone has any updates on it. Twist ending. The story itself is pretty clever, with a book writer who steals ideas, eventually comes across a book one day from an amateur writer, and he decides to basically steal the ideas in the book. However, the amateur writer predicted this and poisoned the book. Needless to say, some twist endings you just can't predict. Skipper's Bin. Skipper's Bin is a story about the darker side of YouTube, essentially being that although there are plenty popular content creators out there are also some unpopular ones. Some videos are, in fact, just simply disturbing, and in which case, the author came across a terrifying channel that, at one point, had a advertisement or watermark to something called Skipper's Bin. The videos were progressively darker each time and more brutal. You could say it was almost murder. Where those videos are now are unknown, but you could probably still find them in the dark recesses of the internet. Room 732. This story follows the author, who eventually finds an old hotel that he used to go to. After checking in with the clerk, he then decides to walk into one of the rooms. However, after going in, he realizes that the now disarrayed hotel has something in there. To be more specific, a ghost. Thumps. Thumps is the story about two main protagonists that are stuck in some entirely new place, in which they eventually go insane, or so it appears to be, and the author tells the story of what happened to him. Abaddon Tenebrae. So after thoroughly searching this entry and looking for this story, I couldn't find anything related to it. And even when I did, it was a Spanish creepypasta, so yeah. The Town of Blanche. From what I could tell so far, I just couldn't find anything related to this. I've scoured so many places, and it just didn't pop up. So if I ever do come across a story, I'll probably read it maybe, but until then, I'm probably just gonna leave this entry blank. The Tale of Robert Elm. This story is a bloody one to say the least, and it also covers about a cult of some kind, also known as the Black Circle, and Robert Elm recounts the story to a person at the bar, and eventually that cult finds him once again. Needless to say, it's a pretty good read. Secret Bar. This story follows the author who, despite being 20 years old, is now basically trying to make himself feel better, thus going to different bars, trying new things, and he's been to quite a lot of places at this point in time. He eventually finds an invite to a mysterious bar. After going to this secret bar, he then realizes that it's a whole nother level of hell, and a bunch of creepy stuff happens after that. Still, it is a pretty good read, and I will definitely cover this in one of my new uploads. Seer of Possibilities. The Seer of Possibilities is a story about an entity that can predict certain things. The author of the story then comes across it and eventually has his life altered by the events of this strange entity, and eventually ending in the author's death. It's a pretty kind of over-dramatic thing as well, I find, but hey. The story is good and it does have some really good qualities on points, so if you want to read it, I'd say it's a pretty good read. Talk to Strangers. This, unfortunately, is another dead entry that came up with nothing, so I don't know what to think of that. I may come back to it in the future, though, if I do a remaster, maybe, or something of that nature, but as of now, that's it. And with that, that includes the official, as far as I'm concerned, creepypasta iceberg. Thank you so much for sticking through with me and watching. This has been one hell of a journey. I'm surprised that I've finally completed it, and oh boy, it's been really entertaining, really great, and overall filled with some interesting things, such as information and how new creepypastas I've read. But if you want to see perhaps another bit of this, I will go through with that. Actually, I have got another part to this in the works, if people are really interested in it, but it's mainly probably just going to be extras and stuff. But until then, that's really all I want to say. I've got a couple Christmas videos planned maybe as well, if I can actually fit those into my schedule. But I think that's been all for now. Thank you so much for watching. Love you all, and have a very safe evening, or night, or morning. Goodbye.